Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled, really thrilled to be speaking to a young man by the name of Owen Grant Innes, because I have a beautiful book in front of me called Duty, a love letter to Queen Elizabeth II, and it really is a very unusual book. Hello, Owen.
Hi, Pete. Lovely to meet you.
Likewise. I've got to start off by saying you must be thrilled with this. It's like a piece, well, it is art, but it is a piece of art in front of me. Explain the story behind it.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Pete. That's very kind. Well, the story was, it was 2021, early on in the pandemic, and I was in between projects and trying to figure out what my next art project would be. And as I have done in the past, I sort of came to the Queen for inspiration, and I started working on different paintings, and I, sort of evolved this style, and I was really, really happy with it. And it occurred to me that, given all the restrictions we had in our life at that time, a book might be the best way to approach this group of paintings, and the best way to share it with people. So that's sort of how it came together.
Now, tell me, as a young boy in the 60s, you preferred pink to blue. It said that in the book, and you couldn't top that. It's a beautiful description. Explain.
Well, yeah, I'm very happy to explain that. I wrote that I preferred pink over blue as a way to sort of explain that I didn't really understand where or how I fit into the world around me, because as most men of my generation, especially gay men of my generation, would understand, there was sort of social norms that were very much imposed on us that maybe didn't feel natural. So as a young queer kid, and, this is before I even understood, adult sexuality, but I understood that, I was marching to the beat of a different drum than many of my other young friends. And I grew up in a beautiful place, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and, being Canadian, it was part of the Commonwealth. So every morning we would, sing God Save the Queen. And there's a beautiful photographic picture of Her Majesty over the chalkboards at the front of every classroom. So she was very much a presence in my young life. And in that time, too, the classrooms always had big maps of the world. So there's this sense of feeling a little bit isolated and confused about my own position in the world, but through the Queen and through the Commonwealth. And there was a sense of being connected to a bigger, more, a bigger, bolder world. And there was something meaningful for me in that. It sort of gave me a place to belong, where I was sort of in my own sort of immediate world. I felt a bit unsure of how I fit in.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm a lot older than you, but our generations, we could never say this, and we can now say it publicly, that the Queen and her life has been iconic to so many gay people, haven't they, throughout the world?
Oh, I think so. As gay men, we tend to love fabulous, strong women, and she is definitely a fabulous, strong woman. But I think, like you say, for men of our generation, we lived through a lot of changes, and some of it was very painful and very difficult. But we've also seen remarkable and incredible changes in our lifetime, which I think, at this point in my life, I'd like to focus on being grateful for those, and not forgetting, the hardship that people lived. But, it was in, 67 that the Queen signed the Royal Assent to, decriminalize homosexuality. And then less than, 40, 50 years later, there's, the Equality Marriage Act. And then that's a very short time in history for so much change to happen. Yeah. And, it happened under the reign of Her Majesty. And I know she's not solely responsible for it, but she, as our head of state, she guides us through these transitions and how we understand who we are within our nation, the changing of our laws. So I think she sort of held our hand as we walked those miles,
I'm talking to Owen Grant Innes, who's got a beautiful book. It really is something to behold. When I opened the envelope and brought it out, it's called Duty, and it is a love letter. to the Queen. It's great. The biggest problem, surely, Owen, you had with this book was a jubilee, a platinum jubilee. Where and what you take to put in the book, because she's done so much and done it respectfully and beautifully.
Yeah, I agreed very much. And so it's a book of 64, 66 pages. So there's perhaps 27 images of the Queen. So I tried in the space of those paintings to tell the story of her life as a person, and then touch on some major historic points through her reign, so that we understand how she sort of helped us digest and understand things as they happened in history. You know, she was there to give a speech and help us understand a change, or respond to the death of Churchill or the death of Princess Diana. She really helped us grapple with huge losses and growing experiences of the last 70 years.
You're a self-taught painter. You've got a style which is quite unique. Were you scared of doing this book, or was it just exciting? But were you frightened of putting it together?
I don't think I was frightened. I was very excited by it. I think it's quite obvious that it's a labor of love, and it's done, very much in the spirit of gratitude for the service that Queen Elizabeth has given to us all. So, I mean, obviously there were times when I struggled and wasn't happy with images and had to rework them. But it's like a huge puzzle of making the work, creating the work, finding sort of missing gaps, and then putting it together as a story. And so I created the paintings first, then I tried to sort of string them together chronologically, and then using quotes mainly from Her Majesty, telling the story of her life.
I've got to tell you, you won't realize this, but there is a faint sound of bells playing in the background, and it's from the Anglican Cathedral. So evidently the Queen appreciates what we're talking about.
That's very good to know. Thank you, Pete.
I'm pleased about that. Now, the structure of your book, I loved all the pictures. You had to mention, didn't you? You had to mention corgis and horses. Her love of animals is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, obviously she's a head of state, and she can only reveal very little of herself as a person, because it's her role to sort of create a distance, and not, her role is about her role. It's not about her as a person. So I think when we see her with her corgis or with horses, or in certain situations, we get a sense of, a human who loves creatures and, just is a person as well as a queen. And that's why, I wanted to include some of those images that weren't necessarily about the big historic moments, but just about her as a person.
Apart from the cover of the book, there's two that I really like, and we'll talk about both of those. The first one is Diana, when the Queen you painted her in black and talks about Diana. It was a hard time for her, wasn't it? And it was a time that she and the royal family nearly made a mistake, because they didn't realize the love for Diana.
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult time, and there was so much sadness in the world. I mean, Diana was an incredibly loved person for many reasons. She was an amazing, amazing woman who gave so much herself. And I also think that when it happened in 1997, there was a heightened frenzy in the press about the royal family, and the 24-hour news networks had started, and there was this kind of need for content. So there was a certain segment of the press that I think tried to stir up a lot of drama that didn't exist. So for me, when the Queen actually, gave her address, and she said, "So what I say to you now, I say as your queen and as the grandmother." And in those words, in that one sentence, she helped the world understand that this is an enormous loss, but they are also a family that is grieving. And she's a grandmother to two young boys who just lost their mother. and that's an unbearable burden to have to bear, and to try and support her grandchildren and her family through that. And I think that really made us all understand that this is a personal tragedy. Because Diana was such a public figure, we were all very, very sad and heartbroken, but so was the royal family. And they just needed time as a family to digest this huge, huge trauma and understand how to function as a family.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite pictures, which might surprise you, is the Princess Mechanic. I loved it.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, that was fun. Obviously, these are all things that I knew, but it was great fun to do the research and get the details and learn that, that she was the really only female member, I think, of the royal family to serve full-time active duty in the armed services in her life. So as a teenager, she worked as a mechanic in the army, and she was part of that generation, the generation we fondly call the greatest generation that saved us from, a world of fascism. And they gave so much, and they really have, were part of shaping the world we live in. They laid this foundation for freedoms and liberties that we all enjoy now. And I think it's easy to forget because sort of the mist of time, covers things up. But they really paid the price so that we could have the wonderful world and that we live in now.
Have you ever met the good lady?
I have not. I have not met her. I've seen her when I was a child and a teenager in Nova Scotia. She came to Halifax to plant a tree at a veterans hospital, and I went down with my mom, and as it often is in Halifax, Nova Scotia, it was a foggy day, and I remember the Queen sort of shimmering through the mist in a lovely mint outfit and a white hat and her silver shovel to turn the soil for the tree. It was just nice to be there. I didn't get to meet her, but to see her was a very nice thing. And
have you sent her a copy of the book?
You know what, Pete? That is very high on the top of my list, but right now the palace isn't accepting any mailed gifts from the Queen, to the Queen. So I'm trying to figure out how to get her a copy, because the little boy, the child that sort of started this process, loves the idea of the book landing on her desk and her getting a chance to just look at it for 2 minutes in her day and just feeling the gratitude and the love with which it was created.
Tell me, I had a little whisper that you become a naturalized Brit.
Yeah. Both my husband and I, we became British in 2021. We've lived here for 8 years now, and that was a very, very meaningful thing to become, an official citizen and citizens in our adopted home. And because it was, COVID, it was a one-to-one ceremony, so we didn't get to do it together. But when I was when I did my citizenship ceremony, I chose the allegiance to the Queen, and in that I swore allegiance to Her Majesty, her heirs and successors. And my eyes welled up with tears as I said those words, because it's really profoundly meaningful, because it's also because the Queen is our head of state and she represents us as a nation, and Queen and country is so much of who we are. So that oath, that allegiance, the words were to the Queen, but it was to every other citizen to be part of this national family, was a great, great honor. And also because I'm born to a long line of Scottish Canadians, so my family is fiercely proud of their heritage. So it's sort of like coming full circle to be born of people who left this great country to forge out a new life in another great country, and then to come back and be part of both nations it feels very right. for me.
Owen, coming towards the end, I've got to say that when I opened the book, I was very touched. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the book is called Duty. It's a beautiful coffee table book. It's one of those books that you'll pick up, enjoy, put down, pick up. It's one of those. Owen, you dedicated it to Ronnie, your other half.
I did. We've been together almost 35 years. So he's, we're partners in crime, and we've lived a wonderful life. And the dedication is for Ronnie, my husband, my anchor, my forever port in the storm. And I guess I was trying to say that in a relationship, in a marriage, you walk beside each other and you take care of each other, and you understand that sometimes your partner stumbles and you need to be there to pick him up. And so I've been very lucky to have that wonderful support system in my adult life.
And to finish off, I've got to ask, what do you want people that buy this beautiful book, what do you want them to feel when they've looked at it and put it down? What would you, as somebody who's created this piece of art, what would you want them to say?
Well, I guess it's a very emotional project for me. So I would like them to feel that. I would like them to feel the connection to the history that we all share, and affection and understanding for, how very much Her Majesty has given to us all. And that, at the end of the day, we're all in it together. We live in such a challenging world with so many hardships, but I think we're stronger together than alone.
What's the book called?
It's called Duty, A Love Letter to Queen Elizabeth II.
And who's the author?
Owen Grant Innes.
It's a joy to talk to you. Thank you, Owen.
Pete, it's been lovely. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.